Good afternoon. Today is Wednesday, November 19th, 2025. It is 5:30 p.m. I would like to call to order the Planning and Land Development Regulation Board. Please stand with us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Irene, please call the roll to determine a quorum.
Board Member Stansel. Vice Chair Albano is excused. Chair Shank.
Here.
Board Member Heldon.
Here.
Board Member Nicholson is excused. Board Member Ferguson.
Here.
Board Member Decker.
Here.
Board Member Gross is excused. School Representative Mr. Diener. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes. We'll have two votes, two motions, one for the October 15th regular business meeting, followed by the workshop minutes. Did everyone receive the minutes in the meeting minutes and the workshop minutes? If there aren't any corrections, we'll entertain a motion for approval of the regular business meeting.
I'll make
minutes.
a motion for approval. Second.
Irene, roll call, please.
Board Member Decker.
Yes.
Board Member Heldon.
Yes.
Board Member Ferguson.
Yes.
Chair Shank.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. We will now entertain a motion for approval of the workshop meeting minutes for October 15th, 2025.
I'll make a motion for approval. Second.
Thank you. Irene, roll call, please.
Board Member Decker.
Yes.
Board Member Heldon.
Yes.
Board Member Ferguson.
Yes.
Chair Shank.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is Ordinance 2025-XX, amending the City of Palm Coast Code of Ordinances by creating a new Chapter 8, Animals, Article 3, Backyard Chickens, Section 8-100, General Conditions for the Keeping of Backyard Chickens, amending the Unified Land Development Code S. Mr. Wynn.
Yeah, good evening, Madam Chair and agency members. This has been long in the process. We went to council many times, and so I think we are finally there. And this is basically requesting your recommendation to City Council. First reading December 2nd, and then second reading December 16th on the establishment ordinance for a backyard chicken. So Ms. Barbara Grossman, Co-Enforcement Manager, will present that.
Thank you.
Good evening, Barbara Grossman, Code Enforcement Manager. I'm here tonight as the ordinance to allow backyard chickens. In May this year, Council requested staff implement a background chicken pilot program, which was not heavily participated. There were approximately 25 applications received and processed. Then in September, Council reviewed the draft of the ordinance being presented to you today. So it was May 13th, September 2025. These are some of the regulations that were put in place during the pilot program. This pilot program has experienced a low participation rate and has received a couple of complaints. As of November 4th, there were 25 applications received during the pilot program. Only 2 permits expired and therefore not issued. An application should be applied for online. Backyard chickens are limited to 100 permits, as per City Council, wide, and first come, first served basis. Limit would be 4 hens per single-family residential parcel and requires class on raising chickens with a manure management component and a $50 permit fee.
Thank you.
Also required are fly-tight bins for the manure. The coop and the run must be set up prior to permitting being approved. The site plan must be submitted with proposed setbacks at time of application. The size and setback regulations were put in place during the pilot program, so you can see here what their requirements are as far as the coops go and their setbacks. An animal control officer would complete an on-site inspection prior to issuing the permit to make sure the regulations were all followed. These are some of the approved coops that were inspected. Some of these chickens have nice places. Again, another coop and approved fencing is required around the coop so that it's opaque from all the adjacent neighbors, both rear and side. This is a coop that is not in compliance but has been brought into compliance after 4 staff reviews and 2 inspections. The multiple reviews were due to the applicant not completing the requirements in accordance with the city's background chickens pilot program. Another used bamboo fence, however, that was not in compliance with the regulations. This has since been brought into compliance, and they now have a 6-foot privacy fence around the coop and are using an approved fencing material. Staff is recommending approving the ordinance to City Council to adopt the ordinance. Thank you, and do you have any questions?
Thank you. Okay, we come to the board. Do you have any questions?
What are the statistics again on how many people applied for a permit, or
20
issued a permit, and denied a permit?
25 of them, no one was denied. We had to go back out for 4 reviews, but 25 permits were submitted. 2 of them expired. Once they expire, then they go back at the bottom of the list if they want to come back in. So there's 100 that are applied for.
Okay. And do we have anything on the cost that this is costing the city by sending people out there multiple times to re-inspect people? Because if they're paying $50 and we're sending somebody out there multiple times.
We would reassess that again, but right now, no. We only had 1 out of 25 where we had to make a couple inspections. Most of them they inspect and they go out, and that $50 was looked at when we originally started the program. Because they're doing everything online. So it's a matter of just looking to make sure that we're verifying the setbacks and the locations and the size of the coop, and that it doesn't exceed 100 square feet, and then an inspection is called in by the property owner.
Okay. And then is there anything in this regulation that's specifying fines or fees for people who violate this ordinance?
They would be going to the code board, and then in chapter 2 we have the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, 4th offense. So they would go before our code board, and staff would give their recommendation. And
Okay.
normally what happens is when you're scheduled for code board, then you're giving a reasonable time to correct the violation. If you didn't correct the violation, then it would go back as an order of noncompliance, and then you would go back to code board, and it would be a massey, and then the fine would start daily, and then it would be a lien on the property.
Okay, so it just falls into all the other code enforcement.
Yes, it does.
Violation costs and everything.
Yes, just as it does with animal licensing, running at large, or any of those nuisance. It's a public nuisance, yes.
Okay, and how many permits were approved again, or currently active?
25 applications were received and processed, and that was as of November 4th. And only 2 expired, and therefore were not issued.
The 23 active.
Yes, 25, and only 2 permits were not issued.
Thank you. I have a question. There was a slide before the pictures that said additional regulations. Can you, because I just kind of went by that one pretty quickly right there.
Mm-hmm.
No slaughtering, no fighting, no selling of chicken eggs or
No.
fertilizer.
It's
Mm.
essentially a pet, if I must say so myself. So we looked at several ordinances, and they all from other municipalities, and there is no slaughtering, there is no fighting, no selling of chickens or eggs. It is strictly a hobby that you're going to have and you rear your property.
Can you go back one slide?
Okay, thank you. Are there any additional questions from the board? Seeing none, we'll open for public comment. No members from the public approach. We close public comment. We return to the board. Is there a motion regarding the chicken ordinance?
So can I just clarify? So we're just trying to either adopt the current temporary policy,
It will be
right?
going into the land development code. Go ahead, Marcus, if you'd like.
So, yeah, right now there is a current temporary policy. This ordinance is that would be adopted to the land development code. So you guys would make a recommendation to city council. City council would look at it, and then they would choose to adopt it or not to adopt it as a permanent land development code item.
And then you had mentioned there were some complaints. How many complaints were there, and what were they?
The one complaint, we received one complaint with the one that was not in compliance. Yeah, we've not received very many complaints at all.
So how do we want to work the motion? So, let's see. Okay. So I'll make a motion to accept staff's recommendation to the city council for the ordinance amending the City of Palm Coast Code of Ordinance by creating a new chapter 8, Animals, Article 3, Backyard Chickens, Section 8-100, General Conditions for the keeping of backyard chickens, amending the Unified Land Development Code, Section 14.02, Glossary.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Irene, roll call, please.
Board Member Decker.
Yes.
Board Member Hilton.
Yes.
Board Member Ferguson.
Yes.
Chair Shan.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. We'll move to the next item on the agenda, Ordinance 2025-XX, establishing the creation of the Recovery Residence Ordinance pursuant to Florida Statute Legislation SB 954. Mr. Wynn.
Yeah, Madam Chair, this is the new state laws basically dictating local government to provide the recovery residence within the city limits. So basically it allows the city to establish some regulations in order to implement this. So Ms. Jackie Gonzalez is going to present that presentation for you, the ordinance.
Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, planning board members and chair. I'm Jackie Gonzalez with the Community Development Division, and I'm here to talk about our recovery home residencies. We currently already have recovery homes in the state of Florida. So the state in July determined that they needed to put regulations in place and not just follow federal regulations, which pretty much allowed them to be anywhere within the state without any kind of governance or guidelines through FAR. So I'm going to explain to you and give you a little bit of background about recovery homes. So recovery homes were created in the mid-1960s based on a growing trend from everybody knows them, the AAA, Organization for Sober Ability. During that time, federal and state laws were created and a determination was made about recovery homes. So in 2011, federal and state laws created some type of regulations on these homes because they felt that they were being exploited a little bit. They were not being operated correctly. So they put in place in 2013 NAR and FAR. NAR stands for the National Alliance of Recovery Residences, and FAR stands for the Florida Alliance of Recovery Residences. Basically, these two organizations create this program. And like I said, it was based on the response from the community about recovery homes. So in 2017, NAR established a code of ethics that was adopted by FAR, which introduced uniform standards to support recovery services and administrative practices. What you must understand is FAR is a voluntary certification. There was no requirement at that time to evaluate or monitor the standard or basic recovery support service being provided to the community for for residents in Florida. So in January of 2025, the certification was no longer being voluntary. It's now mandatory under the new statute that was approved July 1st. Here is how that FAR certification levels are being used at this current time. So a level 1 is a complete treatment, 9 months sober. House runs democratically by House members, and they receive support services, holding each other accountable. Now, on a level 2, as you can see, oversight from experienced house manager, residents have to follow the rules, pay dues, if applicable, and work towards achieving realistic and defined milestones with choosing recovery path. Then we have a level 3. This is a higher level of supervision from a trained staff member. House is staffed 24/7 per day, and they receive life skills, mentoring, and recovery planning and meal preparation. There are some clinical services in a level 3 that's received in other places, but generally they're not necessary. They're not a requirement under a level 3 to have clinical services on site. Now, on a level 4, that's the most intense type of recovery home. Staff is there 24 hours a day. They operate at an outpatient care level. They attend group and individual sessions. They have development recovery plans with social models of living in a sober lifestyle. And clinical services are provided, and all licensable services are provided off-site. So they have to take people to an actual clinical physical psychologist for those services. So one thing you have to understand about a recovery residence, it's an addiction. As U.S. government, it is called a substance use disorder. And under the ADA guidelines, Disability Act, and Fair Housing, they are entitled to have a home residency. So you can't discriminate against them about employment or housing. People have challenged this in federal court, and their rights have been upheld, challenging the discriminatory practices of zoning laws and selective enforcement of building codes. Landlords must consider the request for a reasonable accommodation to help residents with disabilities to maintain their housing. So we do currently have a reasonable accommodation process. But like I said, the state statute on July 1st, 2025 went into effect, and they gave us as local governments to create regulations and have them in place by January 1st of 2026. So the Senate bill changes, local ordinances were required. We have to streamline the permitting process for these residencies and the business tax processes for them to be licensed. We had to create an inclusionary multifamily zoning district for multifamily uses and create personnel ratios for those houses, as well as making sure they met the Fair Housing Compliance Act at that time. So what we proposed as changes was Code of Ordinance, Chapter 17, Community Development. We created Article 6, Certified Recovery Residences. In our Land Development Code, we added the uses under the Dimensional Standard Use Table 3.2 to allow recovery residences in these residential zoning districts. And there's only one, that's the MFR2, when it's more than 11 to 20 people. So we're also meeting their requirements about creating that level of service and how many people can be in a residency at this time. We also, under the state statute in the Land Development Code, we created a section in Chapter 4 of the Community Residential, in our Land Development Code about community residential homes. That already existed under the state statute. We just included our recovery homes to that. And therefore, all recovery homes are more or less going to be treated just like we would treat any type of community residential home. As far as they can't be within 1,000 feet of each other, they would have no more than 10 residencies, and they cannot occupy more than one side of a duplex at this time. Go ahead, you got a question?
So then, under our current code, where it's at community residential homes, you have 1 to 6 and then 7 to 14. That's, you struck through that, so that's no longer relevant.
No,
just
it's
gonna-
relevant for community residential homes under the state statute for recovery homes. They're allowed a minimum of 10. We could set the standard, so we took their minimum and made it the maximum. They're allowed a minimum of 10 and a maximum up to 20. That's what state statute said, but they gave us the ability within that statute to make that limitation. So what we did is took their minimum and made it our maximum. Therefore, we was following the guidelines, but we can't supersede the section of the code for the state on community residential homes. So our community residential home still is 1 to 6 right now.
Thank you.
Is there anything from the state on the duplexes, or is that just the city putting that regulation in there?
Well, that's the city's regulation, but if you look at a duplex, it's considered a single-family home under our definition. Therefore, we're saying that you can't have more than one community residential home within 1,000 feet. So the second side of that duplex would not be 1,000 feet away from the first side.
Okay.
So then my question would be, if you have, what disclosure will be to the other tenants on the other side of the duplex that the community residential home or recovery home is occupying the other side?
Well, because of the fact that they meet the ADA requirements, they have requirements in the state statute, just like they do at the community residential home on the state side. In this new statute, there's no advertisement. It's supposed to be a sense of normalcy. So it would be treated just, that's why we're treating them just like community residential homes. There's no advertisement or notification under that state statute that was created saying that we have to notify that homeowner of that of that sober home or recovery home.
It'd be a violation of fair housing, because then you're notifying them that there's
Right. Because we're
somebody
making a
with a
reasonable
disability.
accommodation for them under Fair Housing Act. That's why I wanted to say that it's a qualifying disability and it's a right under the Fair Housing Act as well as ADA compliance.
So what type of monitoring would be done? So in the situation where you have a working parent, a working single parent, and they have children coming home by themselves after school, and their immediate neighbor is a recovery home and a duplex, and that working parent has no idea that that's what's, adjacent to them, how do we ensure the safety and welfare of the community,
Well,
particularly the children?
Well, most of them that we have here are reputable companies, and so they have been using, we've had one that actually was, every time they went into a neighborhood, they would line the streets with flyers and brochures saying this is what's coming to your neighborhood, this is how our program is ran, these are the people that are accepted into our program to notify the neighborhood. It became a challenge because nobody wants anything in their backyard. It became a NIMBY issue, but it's an outright federal law that they can have these in the city limits. But on the other hand, a lot of the duplex ones that are offered, usually if they're level 3 or 4, they use that other duplex side as staff residency. Therefore, it protects you having a separate renter there. So they have staff living on one side and they have all the residents living on the other side.
Okay, so then it would not be two separate entities violating that 1,000 feet distance. If they have residents living, staff living on the other side, it's still just that one entity renting the entire or owning the entire duplex.
Correct.
Okay.
So there's no way that they can put a regulation in there to have to notify the community, because these individuals could be living in any home in the city, and then if they're required to notify the community that they're living in that specific home because it's a recovery home, then they would have to be doing it for every house that they live in that's even not a recovery. So I don't see there's any way we could do that without violating their rights.
No, the way she just explained it, though, the way Mr. Gonzalez just explained it with the duplex properties, because it says can only occupy one side of the residence. So if you had a new program coming into Flagler County, that into Palm Coast, that a recovery program, and they read this, how could we make it a little bit clearer that the other side could be used for administrative purposes?
Usually they come in and they talk to staff. We have a conversation with them through the application process, because through that process, they have to apply for reasonable accommodation. That's the first thing. And then they have to apply for an occupancy care home permit, which is another thing. So during that process, when they come in with a duplex, the first thing we do explain to them is that the other side, are you buying the whole duplex? Are you planning on renting it out? What is the intentions of the extra side? So you got side A, you have side B. What are you doing with that side? Is it being rented to the public? We usually have a conversation with them, and they're very reasonable, and we've discussed 1,000 feet, because most of the time they purchase the duplex with the intention of filling both sides with residents.
Thank you.
No problem. So basically, we're suggesting that we amend Chapter 4 relating to recovery residences, procedures, and process to align with the state statute. The owner of the property would need to obtain a business tax. Currently, all they do is obtain a business tax. They're not required to fill out a occupancy care home permit, but we do have to have under the current federal statutes and state statutes, we are requiring reasonable accommodation for each one of these homes current. So what we're proposing is a change in that non-conforming structure. So the state statute came out and said that we're going to currently allow for all non-conforming recovery homes that exist today a grace period. So they have, those existing homes have to come in compliance within 9 months of this regulation being passed. If they will apply within these 9 months, they have 60 days within that certification to get us all the correct documentation. So once they make application, they have 60 days to give us all the complete certifications. If within that 60-day period, they cannot produce that information, their non-conforming use cease. And at that point, we would have to actually close that home. And when they come into compliance, they actually, if they're currently exceeding the 10 maximum, they have to reduce the number of residents to that 10 in order for them to be in complete compliance with our regulations that we have proposing to you today. So the state built into their statute that they wanted all existing ones to come in compliance with this. And that was a direct response from things that are happening in Dade County in South Florida, where you had people buying whole streets. Every home or every 3 or 4 homes on the street was a recovery home.
So what happens with the ones that are within 1,000 feet? Which one has to cancel
It depends
their
on the
agreement?
application date, who applied first
Okay.
for the reasonable accommodation to coexist, because as I said, some of them have reasonable accommodations already, and they have applications. They're just needing to update their current application and be in compliance. Those that don't have applications, because like I said, it was a voluntary service. It was not a requirement for them to go through our process. Those are the ones who have to be in compliance within that 9-month period. And if they can't get the certifications or get our approval within those 60 days after making applications, they would be, under state statute, have to close.
So staff basically would have to monitor the locations of each residence, recovery residence, and community residence as well. Basically, that would be Jackie.
So they'll all basically have to have FAR certification.
They would have to have the FAR certification. They would now have to apply for the occupancy care home, which means they would have to, under the state statute, comply with building codes as well as fire codes. And they would have to now also have that reasonable accommodation for.
So this whole process, technically, from the date of adoption, could be 11 months.
No, it's 9 months.
No, I say 11 months because you said they have 60 days from the date that they put the application in.
Correct. So
So
if
if
you
they
waited
submitted
till
at
the
the 9th
9 month
month, then-
experience period, then you
yeah.
do have an extra 60 days. So you're correct. It is 11 months. Hopefully nobody waits that long to try to get approved, but you never know. So
Okay.
also we had to modify in the Land Development Code, Chapter 14. We had to update and add definitions, like boarding home. We added the definition for a boarding home, determining that there is a part of the building and that they are having to provide, a boarding home provides meals, lodging, and compensation for 3 or more unrelated persons. But we also specify after we created each one of these definitions that they are not considered recovery residents. There was a difference between a boarding home. We defined what a qualifying disability was, because that was a definition that was determined that needed to be added from the state. Also, reasonable accommodation was added as a definition in our code. Then we went ahead and defined shelters, halfway houses, rooming houses, as well as giving you the recovery residences definition at that time.
Do the halfway houses fall under the recovery residence?
Under
they
our
are-
code, they do not qualify as a recovery resident.
Okay.
Then basically, we set up an appeals process through the Land Development Code. The valid complaint can go directly to our community development staff. If you're not happy with that, you can always appeal those determinations, and it would go to the director, then from the director to the city manager. And then if you're not happy with that determination, we can always escalate it to city council as a last resort. But the first appeal should go directly to community development staff, and we have 30 days to respond to that appeal, and then they can have written complaint regarding that appeal 30 days after the receipt of the letter from us.
So I got a question for the enforcement side of this.
Okay.
If they are not in compliance and they have to vacate the property, and if they fail to, will they fall under the squatter's law? How they are not authorized to be in the house, and the sheriff's office can remove them? Or how are we handling that aspect to it?
Don't think we've gotten that far. We did go through the process. It is a code enforcement issue, so they would be treated as code for it. But as far as the eviction process, that's probably something that we need to look into on how we're going to establish that.
So that would be through the courts. So if for some reason, I would look at like no different than if we have to remove a dog from a home, we can't just go in the home and remove it. We would need some type of order from a judge. So if we went that route, we would have to go through the court, file something, and get approval from the court to go and remove them. It'd be that type of matter.
Okay, because when I look at these, they're a business operating. It's not a residence that has homestead. They don't have a lease with these individuals leasing from the property, so they're not subleasing it or anything. So it's just they're occupying the property. So that might be something we want to look into, to where that these individuals that are getting a permit and a license to operate these homes voluntarily and the lawyer can better explain this part, where they voluntarily give up their right to remain in that house if they are found to be a squatter, and they could be evicted immediately without having to go through the process of the courts.
Well, the tenants, they would be more like clients. So they will have an admissions and discharge. I think if they use that type of language, admissions and discharging procedure, then there isn't a lease, and so they wouldn't be looked at as a tenant. It would be, like you stated before, the business. Now, if the business is leasing that particular property from someone, that's an issue between that property owner and that business in regards to them defaulting on lease.
So like on a level 3 and a level 4, the majority of their funding is state issued. So as soon as they are not certified and they get a letter from the city saying that they're not certified anymore as a recovery home, state funding stops. State mandates at that time that they have to relocate those patients to another facility that can accept the state funding. Mm-hmm. So in a way, the state steps in on a level 3 and level 4. The concern would be on a level 1 and 2, where they're not state mandated to actually have those services, because these are more like a self-guided service for them. They're not getting state funding, so then we would have to go the route that Marcus was talking about as far as going through the court system to make sure that those people are either displaced or not displaced, because under the Fair Housing Act, you can't displace anybody without making sure that they can get into another recovery facility within the city.
Of course.
Because you want to make sure you're not violating anyone's due process rights. So unfortunately, we would have to make sure that they get their due process, and the due process would be the courts in the end. But the ideas of maybe adding that language, that sometimes speeds the process up, because then people see that and they automatically just leave. They don't want to bother with the problem.
Yeah, and I think obviously we have to meet the deadline to get this approved the way it's written. So I think that the way it's written currently is fine to move forward now, but possibly in the future work with council to try to write something up to give the city authorization to proceed how they need to in law enforcement as well.
Well, remember, this is FAR certification, so this is a program. So they're certified under FAR, and there are guidelines for the program. we can't view it as if it's just a homeowner that's operating a recovery home and within their home or within a property that they own. That's what makes it a business, and it falls under different guidelines because it's FAR certification. So to me, it would be more like you stated earlier when you said their patients or their clients, and they have admissions and discharging procedures. So within their policies and procedures, because FAR is going to require that, program policies and procedures. So their policies and procedures should outline the admissions and discharge process. And if they lose their certification, that's in essence them losing their license. They're shut down. Now, if they own that house, meaning the program owns the house, we're just saying you're no longer qualified to operate in this manner, right? So we wouldn't have to, whether or not they're paying their mortgage or paying their lease, that's not the concern of the city. The city just says that this home no longer conforms for this use, so it can't be used for that. And the state is now saying, if you have been told that your license is revoked or your certification is revoked, you have to make sure you have discharge planning procedures for any residents that are, or residents or patients, whatever term they want to use, that are currently admitted into the program.
Correct. So basically, we also verified their program guidelines and so as a part of our reasonable accommodation form, we require them to provide us with the process and procedure. The majority of these homes, people are in them for approximately no more than 90 days because this is supposed to be a transition from abuse to self. In other words, to help them move on into getting their own ownership. So a lot of the requirements under FAR will say that they need to have educational programs. They need to make sure that they have access to jobs, transportation to jobs. The whole point is to get these people up and on their feet. And like I said, the maximum I've ever seen any one of these homes come in was 6 months, was the living at this facility at one given time. Because the whole point is this is just the transition from the substance abuse to the actual physical living on their own in society without any help.
I think that's I'm sorry. I think that's an important point that didn't come up in the presentation, that for them to qualify for disability, they have to be clean for a certain period of time, cannot be currently using.
Correct. And that's from the state statute.
Thank you.
No,
Are there any other questions from the board? Seeing none, we'll open for public comment. Any members of the community would like to speak? Seeing none, we close public comment. We'll come back to the board. Do we have a motion regarding this ordinance for recovery residences?
Make a motion to recommend approval of ordinance 2025XX, establishing the creation of the recovery residence ordinance pursuant to Florida state legislation SB 954.
I'll second.
Irene, roll call, please.
Board Member Decker.
Yes.
Board Member Hilton.
Yes.
Board Member Ferguson.
Yes.
Chair Shank.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is board discussion and staff issues. Any board discussion? Any staff issues?
No, I don't.
Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Okay, we will now close our business meeting at 6:08 p.m. And we will now, today is Wednesday, November 19th, 2025 p.m. is 6:08 p.m. We will open our Plan and Land Development Regulation Board workshop. Please stand with us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Irene, roll call, please.
Board Member Decker.
Yes, here.
Board Member Hilton.
Here.
Board Member Ferguson. Board Member Ferguson.
Yes. Here.
Chair Shank.
Yes, I'm here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll now move to the next item on our agenda, which is presentation of proposed amendments to Chapter 13th Architectural Design Regulations of Land Development Code. Mr. Winnie.
Yes, through the chair, agency members, is going to present to you the Chapter 13 relating to architectural design regulations. Mr. Dylan Rodriguez is our environmental planner, and Mr. Rick Picotaci is our landscape architect. This is one of the important chapter in our LDC relating to basically what we enjoy out there of all the developments relating to residential and non-residential. So it's important, and this will reflect what the City Council adopted in May relating to the comprehensive 2050 policy.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As Fong said, I'm Richard Picotaci, the landscape architect for the city, and I do most of the architectural reviews as part of the TRX team when applications are made to make sure that the architectural designs are in compliance with these regulations. And we've worked, Dylan Rodriguez works with me. He's the environmental planner. And together we make sure that we tried to clean these up a little bit. We didn't try to rewrite them because they weren't bad to begin with, but we tried to clarify some inconsistencies or some conflicts just to clear up some of the language. Try to address ongoing repetitive issues. We try to update references to the Florida statutes or agencies and clarify the intent of the regulation. So with that, and these changes here only show the parts of the regulations that needed revisions or editing, and the changes are shown in red. So we'll go through them at this time. We'll start with Section 130203, coastal building visual relief. Buildings within 300 feet of the intercoastal waterway shoreline shall be oriented to provide 1 foot of unobstructed view, and we added from the right-of-way to the waterfront for each 3 feet of view obstructed by the building. Because prior to the change, we weren't sure where we were talking about the point of view. Section 130207A, exterior walls. Exterior walls of finished materials shall include stucco, stone, natural brick, finished concrete, split-face block, wood, or other materials, including but not limited to synthetic materials similar to the appearance and durability to those previously named. Finishes of exposed concrete block or corrugated metal are prohibited, and we added, except metal may be allowed only in industrial zones if it is not visible from the right-of-way and from adjacent properties, and a minimum of building setback of 200 feet as determined by the land use administrator. That typically applies to Park Grove grade, that part of town. Dylan, you want to go ahead?
130207B, roofs. Roof material visible from the ground shall consist of concrete, slate, clay, tiles, asphalt fiberglass shingles, composite shingles, metal standing beams, plastic rib metal, photovoltaic roofing material. Residents used may also have cedar shapewood. Green rooms shall have the same material and color as the primary structure or may use 3-inch insulated composite roofing. Can roofing and corrugated plastic roofing materials are prohibited. To allow for the introduction of new roofing materials of similar quality and appearance, the land use administrator may maintain a supplementary list of acceptable roofing materials. And this is from really clarification as well as current practices. The screen rooms, and along with everything following that, is currently in use. It's just not codified in the code. So getting it in the code allows us a more clear way to explain to developers what we're looking for and the regulations. 130301B, within residential developments, an identical house can only repeat every 4 lots when fronting the same right-of-way, including both sides of the street. However, 2 non-identical houses of the same style may be built adjacent to each other. In this section added after is current practice as well. That's why we deemed it clarification. And I feel that adding it in the code helps add that clarity that is needed as well. So to be considered non-identical, 2 houses should be distinguishable in ways such as reverse orientation plan, tile and shingle roof, articulation changes, different articulations, use of banding on one and shutters on the other, etc. Facade design changes with structural change, different massing, change windows locations, change entryway design, change of roof line design, or architectural equivalent. 130302B1, porches or screen rooms may have a flat roof where allowed. And the second part was added to address an ongoing issue. Screen rooms are only permitted at the rear of the home.
It doesn't mean that we don't allow screening for the entry porch or garages. So just to let you know, this is basically if you're providing a new addition, then it will be in the rear.
Okay, next we'll go to section 130302B.3. Flat roofs shall be located at the rear of the building, out of view from the public right-of-way. On saltwater canals, flat roofs must match the roof of the primary structure using color material, unless they are located between a screen enclosure and the residence. Matching shingles or modified bitumen rolled roofing with granules that resemble shingles are permissible, and that's clarification. 130303C.2, all single-family residences shall have only one entry door facing the front right-of-way. That's just
I got a
clarification.
question on that.
Yes, sir.
So if you have one facing the right of way, so say you have the covered front porch, you have one facing this way, and then you have one to the left. It's technically not facing the front of it, it's facing sideways. So they both add doors access the front porch. They're just both not front facing, but they are in the front of the house. Will that be approved?
Well, if they're entrances to the porch, I think they're treated differently than entrances to the house.
Well, they would be entrances to the house from the front porch. So if you look at some of these homes that have been converted or some newer builds where they are a in-law suite style, but they're not a duplex, they have 2 entrances to the house from the front, but they're coming from the porch, just not, you can't see, if you're facing the house, you may not see both doors because they're not front facing, because one's facing north and one's facing west or so, but they are both on the front of the house. If you stand in front of the garage and you look at the front door, you may see both. So there might need to be some clarification on
Talking about the
Okay.
porch, is that the porch enclosed porch?
that. No, so the porch, you have a covered front porch.
Mhm.
You're looking at a house, and then you have the front door. And as you're facing the front door, let's just say to the right is the garage, the left is a bedroom when you're in the house, and there's a door that goes into that bedroom from that front porch. That technically means that there are 2 doors on the front of the house, but one is facing front, the other one is facing the porch. So they're like the 2 doors, one's here and one's here on the front porch, but they are both on the front of the house. They're just, one is facing the front, one is facing the side.
Right, well, I think as long as one is facing the front only, that applies to this change here.
Just want to make sure because it says front right-of-way. The front right-of-way is that front porch. Now, that means that some of these houses will not fit within these, and that means that the builders will not, if it's written the way it is, some builders may fight this if they see this, where now they cannot build a house that has a separate entrance to the house to make it like an in-law suite.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
And
But maybe, what you're talking about, I think that's a good suggestion to point out, but we haven't seen anything like that, so,
look at one of the builders, the Americano version of Lennar Homes is one that pops in my head. I think that's the one it is. They have it to where you walk into the front entryway, the covered front porch. You have the front, the door that you walk into, but before you walk in that front door, if you look to the left, there's a door that goes into that residence, which would go into a bedroom or into like a in-law area. That would be two doors from the front right-of-way.
so you're talking about a perpendicular wall that would have a door there as well too, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I think the intent here that we're trying to do is that we don't want to have entry door facing the row, for example, that would provide an impression that there will be like a duplex or so that we want to avoid that. And so we'll clarify that.
Yeah, I'm just saying you might want to clarify that to where, so that way it doesn't stop anybody because then they're in violation of the architectural design.
Okay, that's a good point. Thank you for
I have
bringing that up.
I have a question. Is this because, I know like South Florida, for example, where people convert their single-family homes into duplexes illegally? Is this like to prevent that so you wouldn't have two separate front entryways into one home that could become an illegal, like, in-law suite or duplex? Is that the purpose behind that?
That's a good question. Fong, do you know the answer to that?
Yeah. I don't think the aesthetically, we don't want to have an impression that a single family looks like a duplex. That's what we want to avoid. So, I mean, the code doesn't prohibit, basically you have an in-law quarters within it, and then it could have a separate entry. Typically, it's on the side or in the back, but like in your case, we may be able to look at entry. One is facing the street, the other one is basically perpendicular to it, and then you can access that as well. But we'll take a closer look at it. So.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. It's just, I just wanted just to reword it or re-clarify that it's one facing the street.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, facing the right of way is our attempt of saying facing the street.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. It's
Yeah.
just how you interpret, it could be interpreted multiple ways, and then it opens it up for
Yeah,
discussions.
plus who knows where the Amazon delivery guy is going to leave the package, right? Okay, so let's continue on to 130303C point 3. Windows shall be consistent with the architectural style of the building and proportionate in size with placement relative to the overall facade composition. And that's a general statement, just to clarify that we don't want crazy windows, all different shapes and sizes. They need to look like they were designed to match the proportions of the front facade.
Yeah, that's just to clarify because the existing wording is harmony and basically proportionate. What does that mean? So.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now we'll go to section 1303-03D2. Weather protection shutters. Professionally installed Bahamian accordion, roll down, clear guard panels, and armor screen hurricane protection down shutters, and similar approved products subject to the land use administrator. It may be used as weather protection and shall maintain the architectural character when the residents are boarded up. Plywood shall not be considered a weather shutter except for 48 hours or 2 days prior to the storm force winds when they're predicted to reach Palm Coast, and 168 hours or 7 days after the storm, the force winds are predicted to pass. So, point is, we don't want neighborhoods boarded up with plywood for any extended period. So we're limiting. If that's the best you can do to protect your home, you can do it, but we limit the time. And then it follows up saying duct tape shall not be an acceptable method of shutter fastening. Storm shutters can be used 1 month prior to the hurricane season through 1 month after the hurricane.
So can I ask a question? Does that mean they can be up for 7 months?
it wasn't intended to be that. We looked at this the other day. Did we fail to remove that, Dylan? Or no?
So I think what he's talking about is you drive down these streets with the, say, snowbirds are not here, but they leave their shutters, or they leave the hurricane shutters up for months and months, and there's no storm in sight. There hasn't been a storm for 3 months, and they just left them up for whatever reason. So I think that's what he's talking about.
Yes, sir.
Talking about the literal interpretation of what's written here, not what's happening in the marketplace, in the real world.
That's
I think-
basically the way I would interpret it, is just, yes, it's for the entire period of the hurricane season.
I believe
bef-
so, yes, ma'am. Yep,
Okay.
because we do have people that do leave the community and need to protect their home when they're
Mhm.
not here as well, and they're not able to make it down, especially with all the evacuation orders that can be issued during that
Mhm.
period. It's not something we see very often, and they do have to look architecturally appealing. That is the big thing with this. But I do believe this code allows that.
Yeah, this pertains to the first part of this, where we describe all the Bahamian cordon shutters, roll down guard panels, all that stuff maybe up for that period of time, but not the plywood. Plywood is limited to a shorter period.
It's not these ones that are either horizontal or vertical metal framed with the screws in them. We're talking about a single piece shutter, or does it include both methods?
Well, there's roll down shutters allowed.
I think it includes all of
It does?
any type of shutter.
What it says here, approved products subject to land use administrator. The only thing that seems to be clearly limited is the wood and the duct tape.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
I used to live in South Florida, and you're lucky if you can get what they call it, plywood. 48 hours before that, it would be all gone.
And we did adjust from a 72-hour period for 3 days to remove the plywood to 168 hours for 7 days due to BEAC's suggestion with the time frame it can take to get back, following an evacuation. Everybody choosing to return to the area.
So what's in the presentation, the 168 hours is what you're proposing, not the 72 hours?
Correct.
Yeah, allow them
remove
like
that.
7 days after that to remove.
130303E, awnings. If used, awnings shall complement the architectural style and colors of the residence. Awnings may be placed above windows and doors. Placing any awning on a residential garage is prohibited. Permitted awnings shall be constructed from canvas, matte finish vinyl, copper, wood, or a material that land use administrator deemed appropriate with regards to the architectural style. Prohibited materials, plastic, shiny vinyl, plexiglass, corrugated metal, or materials resembling plastic are prohibited. 2, illumination, backlit awnings shall be prohibited. So we've added wood and corrugated metal. That's a current practice that we allow. So that was a clarification.
And one more quick clarification. The land use administrator is sitting to your right.
Oh, don't point it out.
130304, mechanical equipment. Mechanical equipment such as, but not limited to, air conditioning units, pool pumps, generators, backflow preventers, and gas tanks shall be screened from view of the public right-of-way and access easements with landscaping and/or fencing in compliance with city regulations. And that addresses an ongoing issue and a clarification. I believe there have been arguments that backflow preventers previously were not considered mechanical equipment, and they have tried to avoid screening it, if I'm remembering this conversation correctly. So we feel by adding it in there, it gives us more teeth to make sure that we have a beautiful community.
Yes, the idea of screening mechanical equipment, it shows up in the architectural regulations as well as the landscape regulations. I look at both. And many times when we do larger projects for landscape review, we're concerned about the perimeter buffers and street trees and stuff like that, and that all gets designed and approved. And then if, say it's townhomes coming in, building permits come in for each building, and we look at the buildings and the landscaping around those, and they get approved. But then there's a big pipe sticking out of the ground front that wasn't on either one of those applications. And that's in the regulations that needs to be screened, but it doesn't always get screened, so we catch it one way or the other, either with landscape or with architectural features such as fencing or lattice or other panels that match the side of the building. So because they are unsightly when you see them they're painted big pipes. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah, the location of the backflow preventers are important as well. For example, the promenade submitted plans to show backflow preventers like up front, fronting Central Avenue. We say we will not allow that. So they remove it and put it in the back in the parking lot. So things like that, we have some leverage in order to look to require them at a different location.
Multifamily and non-residential architectural requirements. 1, industrial uses are located in section 1305. We have pulled out the industrial section and added in its own standalone version. The requirements contained in this section apply to all multifamily and non-residential developments, excluding industrial, and that is supported by our recent comprehensive plans, section 11.1.4.4, 11.1.7.3, and 11.1.7.7. And basically all those are stating that it is working towards an easier application and development for those commercial and industrial projects. 130402C1, for multi-story commercial uses, at minimum, 50% of the wall facade of the first floor story shall have windows. The windows shall be placed between 3 feet and 7 feet from the ground. And that's a clarification. Before it read just 50%, and it wasn't sure. It didn't make it clear if it was a minimum or a maximum. So for clarification in current practice, we're adding at minimum.
So now, in our packet, you have stricken the windows shall be placed between 3 feet and 7 feet from the ground. It's stricken from our packet.
Yes, ma'am. I might have missed that when creating this.
Okay, so it is going to be stricken, and it's just going to be limited to, at minimum, 50% of the wall?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Because there are certain commercial products where they do want to do those floor to ceiling windows, especially if you're doing retail space. Yes, ma'am.
So you can't have, so you're striking out the windows shall be placed between 3 feet and 7 feet from the ground. So that means they can do ground to up. Okay, good.
Yes, sir. Yeah. 130402C3, for office and multifamily uses, at minimum, 15% of the wall facade per story shall have windows. That's once again a clarification. We wanted to make sure that we set it either as a minimum or maximum, and current practices are have it at a minimum. 130403C1, parapets. The highest point of a parapet shall not exceed at any point 20% of the height supporting wall. And we have adjusted that from 15%, and that's to address an ongoing repetitive issue. I believe during review, they have asked for flexibility because of mechanical equipment and things like that trying to be screened. It seems they need that extra few percent, so we're just codifying that in the code to make it an easier process.
Yes, and many times when I review architectural for commercial buildings, they present a very appealing front facade, and then when I measure the height of the parapet above the roof, it exceeds 15, and I have to make them change it, and it kind of throws off the designer's intent and the style, and I kind of don't like to do it, and so we want to give them a little bit more leeway, and we do always give them the option to prove that it has to be high enough to block the view of any roof-mounted air conditioning units or other air handlers. From the right-of-way, I make them do line-of-sight drawings to scale, showing how parapet needs to be a certain height for the view to go beyond what the unit. So, and that would be another land use administrator application where it's for the best of all parties, and that's how we've been dealing with it. So by going from 20 or 15 to 20, we're kind of alleviating that situation.
Madam Chair, the remainder of the presentation is a new section in the code. Section 13.05 is relating to industrial development, And all of these are reflecting the comprehensive plan policies. So as you can see there.
Thank you.
Okay. So, we'll go ahead and cover these. Section 1305, industrial. The requirements contained in this section apply to only industrial zoning districts. 130501, corporate trademark design. Exceptions to the requirements contained within this chapter shall not be made for corporate franchise. And that's supported by policy 11.1.1.44, 11.1.7.3, 11.1.7.7 of the comprehensive management plan. Going down to 130502, building architecture. Building enhancements are required and shall be achieved through the use of the following. A, building massing. Massing refers to the two-dimensional shape or three-dimensional volume of a building. Attention to massing is especially important for large buildings whose bulk can be out of scale with their surroundings, or whose walls or roof lines may be uninterrupted, excessively long or high, or monotonous. Industrial buildings shall provide building massing and articulation as follows. Number one, massing requirements. Building massing shall be implemented by use of techniques that reduce the appearance of the high building density or bulk. At least one massing treatment in addition to the articulation requirement shall be included for each 50 linear feet of wall that exceeds 50 feet in length. And again, that's supported by comprehensive plan section 11.1.1.4.4, 11.1.7.3, and 11.1.7.7.
In our architectural technical manual, we show the depiction of those type of massing. But we should have basically provide that in the presentation, but to clarify that. But
Yeah.
if you look on our website, it shows that as well.
And a perfect example is the large building at the south end of the pond here, the lake. That's under construction right now. It's a massive structure, 4 stories. It covers the whole block and turns an L down towards the high school. And if that were a flat wall all the way throughout, it would look like a monster. But the way they've carved out the setbacks, the walls move in and out, and they have so many balconies and windows that they broke it all up. It's a pleasure to look at now. So all this stuff works. People appreciate it more, and it's less intimidating as a human being, next to a huge object, and it's more people friendly. So these techniques work.
2, massing techniques. The use of the following building features when more than 3 feet in depth or height shall be qualifying as a technique that improves building massing. Other massing techniques may be used as approved by the land use administrator. A, balconies. B, building wall offset. C, colonnades. D, cupolas. E, tower. F, pavilion. G, arcades. H, porticos. I, projection and recessed sections. J, clock or bell towers. K, variation in the height of the roof line. L, verandas. And M, overhangs. 3, uses such as industrial facilities, warehouse, and other similar uses are exempt from the massing techniques if the building is not visible from the public right-of-way as determined by the land use administrator.
And that goes with the not visible from the right-of-way. It depends. Our basically minimum is, we're looking at 200 feet, but it could be closer if it's already has basically landscape or something that is, covering that, and we would provide some flexibility in allowing them not to have the massing.
Yeah, and that would typically involve existing vegetation, existing forest. They might save 50 feet of it or 100 feet of it, where it has a dense understory planting, and it's you can't see the building. So that's where that 200-foot requirement would not apply.
B, exterior articulations. Articulations of exterior walls is required to add interest and distinct sense of place to the building. The following features qualify as techniques of building articulations. 1. Articulation requirements. All facades shall include, in addition to the massing requirements, at least one articulation from the list below on each facade. Facades extending for more than 50 horizontal or vertical feet shall provide at least 2 exterior treatment. 2. Prohibited articulation techniques. Professional scoring or etching of a stucco wall give the appearance of shutters, doors, windows shall be prohibited.
Just a moment there. This last section we just wrote is in response to a building, if you're on Route 100 heading towards the bridge from east, just as you pass into Flagler, on the right-hand side, there's a storage building, and they kind of painted pictures of windows and shutters, and it looks hideous. And I think people who were here before us recognized that and wanted to make sure it wasn't replicated in Palmco, so that's why that section's in there.
Thank you.
Okay. Good.
Articulation techniques. The use of the following elements shall qualify as articulation techniques. Base course or plinth course. B, portals. C, windows. D, transoms. E, showcases. F, bay windows or oriels. G, lintels. H, string course and molding. I, fascia. J, cornice. K, piers. L, arches. M, bays. N, balconies. P, wings. R, stoops. And Q, porches.
Looking for corbels. Where are they?
Which one is that?
Corbels.
Oh, guess we missed them.
They were put on my house when it was built, and they, I'm making light of the list. It's a real word. I didn't know it existed, but they're called corbels.
We can definitely look to add that for other elements.
You have everything else here, so I
Yeah,
figured.
I know, it's extensive.
Now, remember, this is industrial. He said it was on his house.
That is true. That is true. We can always have a nice looking industrial building then.
Yeah.
C, fenestration. 1, windowless exterior walls that face the public right of way are prohibited. For industrial uses, at minimum, 15% of the wall facade per story shall have windows. And 3, windows shall be in harmony and with the proportion to the rest of the structure. Four, the use of darkly tinted or reflective glass on the first floor of industrial uses is prohibited. Reflective glass will be defined as having a visible light reflectance rating of 15% or greater, and darkly tinted glass, including glass with a visible light transparency rating of 35% or less. The use of low emissivity, low E glass is encouraged, but must demonstrate that the reflectance and transmittance requirements are met. All plans submitted to the city shall include a glass manufacturer visible light reflectance, visible light transmittance ratings, and low E glass specifications for evaluation. Privacy can be achieved through the use of blinds and curtains.
I have one recommendation. On C4, windows shall be in harmony with and proportionate to the rest of the structure. I would recommend use of the language where you struck it before, using that same language that you replaced it with. Windows shall be consistent with the architectural style of the building and proportionate in size and placement relative to the overall facade composition.
Yes, ma'am. I'll update that.
Thank you.
And 5, uses such as industrial facilities, warehouses, and similar uses are exempt from the fenestration if the building is not visible from the right-of-way, as determined by the land use administrator. The building facade shall provide additional architectural elements in lieu of windows at the same percentage of subsection 130502 C2.
Okay, now I'd just like to add too that in some cases, because of security reasons, depending on what's in a warehouse or a manufacturing plant, you may not want people looking in the window to see what you're building or what you're producing, and you know, invite them into for burglary or mischief or whatever. So we understand that windows aren't appropriate in every occasion. Where are we here? 4 or 5?
Roofs, 13.05.03.
Okay. 130503, roofs. The following types of roofs are permitted. Pitched roofs. A pitched roof shall have a minimum slope of 2 to 12 vertical rise for every 12 horizontal run, and shall have a minimum overhang of 2 feet beyond the building wall. Flat roofed areas, including porches, are permissible in the remaining 35% of the floor area under a roof. Mansard style roof, false mansards are prohibited. C, flat roofs. Buildings that have a flat roof shall be hidden from public view by a parapet or decorated by a cornice. 1, the parapet, the highest point of a parapet shall not at any point exceed 20% of the height of the supporting wall, and that's also a change from 15% previously. And it's not shown here, but this is a new section, so it didn't exist when we marked it out. Number 2, cornice. Cornices may be simple or mixed, straight and curved moldings, but should not exceed 24 inches in depth. Cornices shall have a minimum of 12 inches in height and a minimum of 3 vertical, not diagonal, changes in plane, and a variety of thickness and relief, ranging from the greatest at the top to the least at the bottom. Canopy roofs, D-canopy. Canopy roofs for gas stations, drive-throughs, restaurants, banks, they're all exempt from the pitched roof requirement. Those tend to be tall, flat, flimsy metal things just to cover you from getting wet when you put gas in your car. 130504, building entrances. All buildings are subject to the following regulations. A, entrance placement. The main building entrance shall face the public right-of-way unless it is determined by the land use administrator that such configuration is not practicable. When parking is located on the side or rear of the building, placement of a suitably large building entrance that faces the parking area shall complement but not displace the main building entrance. B, entrance articulation. Main building entrances shall be articulated in a manner consistent with the architectural style of the building. All buildings shall have a minimum of one of the following architectural treatments, separate from the massing and articulation requirement. For each main building entrance, lintels, pediments, pilasters, columns, porticos, porches, overhangs, railings, balustrades, and features consistent with the building style. 130505, awnings. Awnings shall complement the architectural style and colors of the building. Awnings may be placed above windows and doors and are subject to the following requirements. A, height. The minimum clearance of 8 feet shall be maintained between the sidewalk and the lowest part of the awning. B, prohibited materials. Plastic or metals resembling plastic, shiny vinyl, and plexiglass are prohibited. C, illumination. Backlit awnings are prohibited. 130506, light fixtures. Light fixtures attached to the exterior of a building shall be architecturally compatible with the style, materials, colors, and details of the building. 130507, here we are back to mechanical equipment again. Mechanical equipment, utilities, and storage areas. A, mechanical equipment invisible or audible from adjacent property or from the public right-of-way. Mechanical equipment shall be screened by walls, fencing, roof elements, or landscaping. Screening shall be extended at least 1 foot above the equipment being screened. Ground-mounted mechanical equipment shall be located within 20 feet of the principal structure except for transformers. B, service, utility, display, and storage areas. 1, loading areas or docks, outdoor storage, waste disposal, mechanical equipment, satellite dishes, truck parking, and other service support equipment shall be located behind the building line and shall be fully screened from the view of adjacent properties, both at ground and rooftop levels, by walls made of masonry brick or durable man-made material. 2 utility boxes, and all ground-mounted mechanical equipment must be totally screened from view of principal streets as well as pedestrian areas and walk. Backflow preventers shall be landscaped if in view of principal. And then, number 3, areas for outdoor storage, trash collection, and loading shall be incorporated into the primary building design, and construction materials for these areas shall be comparable quality and appearance as that of the primary building. And that's from our comprehensive management plan, section 11.1.44, 11.1.7.3, 11.1.77. And let Dylan wrap it up here.
All right.
So I have a question
Yes, ma'am.
on mechanical equipment, 13.05.07A. Would the equipment from data centers be included in this as well? The mechanical for data, data centers, that the data centers that are going up everywhere. They're not technically in an industrial zone, but if we did have a project that went into an industrial, and I'm thinking of the DRI on US 1, for example, and, the research around those and the noise nuisance with those, if we had someone place one in an industrial zone, would this mechanical equipment description in A be sufficient to protect the residents that live off of US 1?
Yeah, typically my understanding of a data center, they basically enclose it within the building, or pretty much basically toward the back of the building. For example, the one that we have that's coming into Palm Coast, is all enclosed within the building, and then the mechanical component is in the back, but is basically shielded by 3 walls. So, the location, we have to basically select it at certain location that doesn't interfere with adjacent developments, for example. So it depends where it is. I'll give you an example. That's a good point. For example, the 130507B, talking about loading area or docks and outdoor storage, has to be in the back. But we also part of that in the buffer requirement. We have a professional development, a building along Palm Harbor and Frontier, I believe, right? Frontier. So basically, they put everything in the back, like trash receptacles and mechanicals and all in the back. But they are adjacent to existing single-family residents. So we require them to provide buffer and basically a concrete wall. So it's just to lessen the noise and to the resident. So we do have regulations in there that we can enforce to minimize the impact, especially if it's adjacent to residential development.
I think it would really be wise to, as we go through this process, to really look at data centers very carefully and the impact on the community and what we can do to mitigate the impact of surrounding, especially homeowners, because the research out there isn't good as to, the overall health and well-being of people that live near data centers and what those data centers are emitting into the atmosphere, into the environment. So I think we really, if we don't have specifically, we're not addressing data centers, that needs to be addressed in the land development code.
For this, when it says audible, what are the decibels that are the limits here? Because it doesn't give any limit on how loud when we're pertaining to this here for the mechanical equipment. So to one person, something's loud, and to the other person it could be quiet. So are there any requirements anywhere in here that talk about the decibels?
No, but there probably should be.
Mm-hmm.
We can
Okay.
take a look at that.
Yeah, there are standards in terms of how we measure that, because, for example, DOT has those type of measurements before they provide basically a wall, along a highway, so we can look into that and provide as a definition. Instead of included in here, we can put the audio requirement in the definition in the glossary, for example.
And then especially going back to the data centers again, it's not just the noise level, it's what's producing the noise, the source of the noise. So it's not the same as if someone lives, along I-95, the people that are in the F section and they're backing up to I-95 and they're hearing cars passing. It's not the same as the impact as a result of the noise coming from the machines, from the data centers, and how people's health is really being affected by these centers. And so looking at the noise level, the noise pollution, and I believe something to do with even the bodies of water that have to be near them, how much water they're actually consuming from communities. That's another issue. So I really would like to see something in the land development code.
When you guys look at the sound too, I mean, I know it's different for when it's an industrial area. So when you're looking at Hargrove grade and the noise that is up in that area, it could definitely be louder up there, or be allowed to be louder because it's industrial, versus where you have an industrial property that buttons up next to a single family residence or in a residential area. So when you guys do look at the noise decibels, take that in consideration when you're looking at those areas, because for some of these equipment in the industrial areas, we don't expect them to be quiet. And then but if we are going to put something where they get rezoned to an area next to residential, then we can look at different decibel requirements there.
Yeah. Just keep in mind that the purpose of this chapter is mostly for visual appeal of architecture, and it doesn't address all the potential health issues related. Maybe it should. Fong, would that be in other chapters of our code, health issues like that?
Yeah, that would be a different chapter to address that, because this is basically for industrial area.
Yeah.
And then, so we probably gonna look into the compatibility issues. If it's an industrial area that is adjacent to a residential area, then we need to have some kind of buffer and audible requirements.
Thank you.
Yeah, we do have additional buffers between industrial and residential for landscape, the width of landscape perimeter buffers, but we don't actually address noise like we should. So that's good. I applaud your concern for the health and safety and well-being of the public and these matters that we perhaps overlooked or didn't address, because it's important that someone like you does bring it up at meetings like this, and maybe we can take another look at it and make it better for everyone in Palm Coast.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a team effort, that's for sure.
Yeah.
We appreciate the presentation.
Is there anything else we would like to see in here from the board, anything we may have missed? I know we've had some discussion already, but
I think that we provided our comments throughout the presentation. Thank
Yes,
you
ma'am.
for the presentation.
they've been noted. Okay, so from here, we will be bringing it to City Council, and that ends our presentation then.
Thank you.
Yeah, we thank you for your input.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. We do have members of the public. We open to any comments from members of the public?
We can open up to the public at this point. Anyone would like to get up
Please
and speak?
approach, state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
You'll have 3 minutes.
Raymond Royer. There's just two categories. You mentioned about the industrial building, 100, the facade of the windows. I think it's appealing. I guess it's, I mean, I go by that every day because I live on the Darien Island, so I travel by that every day, and I think it's very attractive. And then to the fencing around residential. you got to be cautious with that because my background is HVAC, refrigeration. And there was times I would refuse to do a customer's AC unit because the fencing around the AC unit was just too close to the AC unit. I'm a big guy, you know, and I got to get down on my knees to work on the equipment, and I can't. And if I would get locked on power, you should try to get away from the equipment, and then next minute, I'm bouncing off the fence and being pushed right back on the. So you got to make sure there's a good buffer, and I would hope that you would talk to mechanics in the field to try to get a safe barrier for both the appearance of the homeowner and for the individual that works on that equipment. Because, like I said, there's times I would refuse, and then there would be times where I would tell the customer, your fence is too close to the unit, it's not able to breathe, and that's why your AC unit's not working properly. You got to take that fence down. Well, I'm required to have a fence. Well, I'm telling you, if you take that fence down, you're going to get a different result. You know? So what I would do then, I would set up a hose system, get them AC back on, put water on the sprinkler system until they can figure out how to get the fence, coordinated, because that unit needs to breathe, and there's requirements by the manufacturer with the distance.
In our technical manuals, we address some standard setbacks for shrubs and for other methods of screening. That's mostly for transformers and for the pipes, but not for air conditioning. So maybe that's a good point. We should put that. We should change our manual to address air conditioning units too. And
Yes.
staying away from
Yeah, because the manufacturer does give you the setbacks on the each
Yeah,
side of the
yeah.
unit and the back set. And I've seen where units are just too close to the home because, again, the setbacks between the homes. They push it all up against the
Yeah.
house, and that side of the AC is supposed to be able to breathe.
Yeah, I recently dealt with, I think it was Reverie Community, and they had a large green transformer box facing Route 1, and I told them it was ugly, and he said, well, we can't open the door, so I made them come about 6 feet back, put a hedgerow in front of it, so they did a beautiful job blocking it and had perfect access, drive by it. Things like that. There are little tricks you can do to make it work, and good that you bring it to.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments.
Any other members of the public with comments? Please approach and state your name for the record.
Good evening,
Good
Tony
evening.
Amaral, Palm Coast. First of all, I'd like to thank staff for all the work they're doing on this and you all for going through it all.
Thank you.
This land development section, I do have many issues. Some of it were struck or written, but I only have 3 minutes, so if you'll bear with me. 130203, we are limiting how wide we can build a house facing the intercoastal. If the setbacks are set, then I don't believe the visual aspect from the right-of-way should come into play for that. If I got a 70-foot lot, I can build it 55 feet wide, which means I need 15 feet, I would need 18 feet of side, which now you are restricting by making me make the building smaller. So that's that one. There are several sections where it reads, to the land administrator. He's a busy person, and what is nowhere in here do I see I saw in the presentation before in your workshop, or the meeting, I apologize, where there's a process. If we don't like the results, what's the next step? What's the next step? This is either this is it, and it's very loose on who has final say. And even though some of it still is kind of in the air. The other thing, section where it talks about anywhere where it talks about LRV. City Council passed the ordinance. I believe they removed any LRV requirements. So this needs to be updated on that because that ordinance has an effect and passed already.
That was only for residential.
Well,
LRV.
this is in the general section, so that would affect the residential. This is general requirements, section 130206.
Yeah, that's going to be for that's going to be for industrial.
Now, this says general.
Under 13.
Section falls under
1302
industrial.
is still under general. 1303 is the residential. So,
Can
it's
you
just some-
reference exactly where you're talking about? Because I don't see light reflected.
as long as I can get my
value.
time, I apologize. So, 1302, 06, B, and there are several sections in B where it talks about the LRV, the light reflective value.
Can we bring up that slide?
It's on the slide
Okay.
because it hasn't changed.
We included what was adopted in the ordinance in there, so I will recheck that ordinance.
Okay, and that's just something, again, knowing what I know as far as being around for so long. It's not on here, I don't know if it's written down, you reference in, I apologize, 13.
Can you go back to the sections? 13.
Yeah, 130206 F B. It references LDC 130207. In the paperwork was sent out, I'm assuming it's the next section. It's just not there because there is technically on what you handed out during your packets, there is no reference, but I believe it's just that.
So, okay, continue.
I'm sorry.
About 50 more seconds, Mr. Amaral.
I've got, then I'm going to keep going then because there's other stuff more important to me than this and then this.
Go ahead.
1303, single-family and duplex residential architectural requirements. 130301.A, when it says duplex residential dwelling units shall have the same architectural design, is that, are we calling that mirroring? Where your typical duplexes, they both look the same, just mirrored? Then you're restricting people. Let's say I want to have my family, 2 adults, 2 kids, and we've got parents that we're now taking care of, but they want to have their own kitchen and everything else. I would have to, and I bought a properly plotted duplex lot, and I want to have a 3-bedroom, 2-car on one side, and like a 2-bedroom on the other side. We don't allow for that based on that mirroring that we're calling duplexes. So we are restricting the use of duplex lots in that manner, in my opinion. Then we have 130302. Again, it goes back to that flat roofs shall be reviewed by the land use administrator. So what's our step after if we, he's a busy man. Are you interim? I could have sworn John Zobler mentioned Virginia Smith as the land use administrator yesterday's meeting city council. I could be wrong on that. But
No, I think you were mistaken.
I was shocked when I heard it, that's why, but I did understand that. Then we have
10 seconds, Mr. Amaral.
130303, facade designs, massing requirements. So 130303 is all single family and duplexes. This requirement, the way it's written now is building massing shall be implemented by use of techniques that reduce the appearance of high building density or bulk. At least one massing treatment in addition to the articulation requirement shall be included for each 50 linear feet of wall that exceeds 50 feet in length. This requirement applies to all facades visible from public rights-of-way, adjoining properties, which are my neighbors, which we've never required before, and internal areas of the project site accessible to residents. So now you're basically making me put banding and such on all 4 sections of my house. And again, this is the residential section. You want to put it in commercial, you want to put it in industrial, that's one thing. We are overstepping, I believe, when it comes to that section because you are now making the cost of homes go up by having all this stuff and making it a requirement when it's never been required before. So that will make every basically house in Palm Coast legal non-compliant.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So now, since we've exceeded our time, you
Or I apologize.
you can forward those recommendations to staff so that if you wanted to detail it more, perhaps highlighted copy, so they see exactly all of your concerns, and you don't feel rushed or pressured here, and then we don't miss anything, because those are some very valid concerns.
Yes.
And that's why we like public comment.
More if you.
At
so,
one point,
thank you.
anytime a land use administrator gets involved, it's usually to lessen the restrictions and help applicants gain approval for the project.
So
It's meant to work with you, not against you.
hearing
Thank
some of this stuff, I thought that the 13, some of these sections that he brings up were part of the industrial, but rereading them as he's explaining them, it does fall into the residential, and we're making it harder on builders, which we're not technically supposed to be doing right now, according to some pending laws coming through Tallahassee. So if we start implementing some of these things that are making it more restrictive on them, we will be facing some repercussions. So I know that that's something that is coming down that we should probably be aware of. LVR, I mean, as long as it's falling into industrial only, but if it is mentioned, like he mentioned, into this residential stuff, we need to strike that. The canal setbacks, I mean, going back to that, do we have that on the slide up here we can bring up?
Yes, sir. It's 130203.
03, okay, so,
This is a clarification, where is it referenced from? That's all.
so we're not making it less restricted or more restrictive, we're just clarifying?
Yes, sir.
But, okay, but,
So they just clarified that the view, unobstructed view from the right-of-way.
Correct. Yeah, we are well aware of the 180, and that's the reason why we proceeding with a strategy is to provide you all the suggested changes to our LDC, and then we will see what happened with legislature. I believe it's March 16th. We would know the results, and then after that, then we would bring it back to you again and City Council. If it doesn't meet our, the intent of 180, especially if they define what burdensome means, and then we would come back and then we'll remove all the recommended changes that will be defined under that. Then we will remove those changes and only implement or suggested changes that basically will comply with 180. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public? Please approach. State your name and address for the record.
before she goes, can I ask a question? Is there a way that Mr. Amaral can send that list of concerns to the staff and the staff disseminate it to us? I know we can't communicate with him directly, but can the staff send that out to us so we can review what his concerns are?
Yeah, certainly we would ask Mr. Amaral to send those comments to us, and then we'll disperse that to the agency.
Thank you.
Carla Amaral, Coast. I would just like to say that before maybe staff, like when staff writes these things, that maybe they need to speak to builders who are have experience in building, and then they can pick out these things.
Excuse me, but could you speak more directly into the mic for us hard of hearing old people?
Sure. That when staff comes up with these recommendations, maybe they can put it through a panel of builders, people who have experience, and even roofers. There's a lot of stuff about roofing that's very specific. Because like, Mr. Amaral can point out things real quick of why it's not practical. That would just be one suggestion. The front door, the two front doors from the right-of-way, I just find that unnecessary. I mean, people have corner lots. My sister had a corner lot. She had one door on one side, one door on the other side, both facing the right-of-way. If future ADUs, that might be a problem. The plywood, I don't know why we're changing it from 72 to 48. If you're evacuating and then you have to put up plywood, it gives you that time. I don't know why we're taking that away. And then as far as affordable housing, again, here is another piece of our land development code that does not have an affordable housing section. The banding is expensive. The shutters are expensive. These are expenses that we're adding to a house that we should have exceptions for affordable housing.
Can you repeat that
Thank
last
you.
part?
So there's a lot of banding requirements, like around windows where you need shutters. And for affordable housing, if you're making, like if you're building an affordable housing, it makes it more expensive.
I meant the
Those
part where you're
things
talking
are
about the
just-
shutters and stuff. You were saying that,
If you don't have banding, I think you need shutters. It's part of the code for aesthetic reasons.
yeah, okay.
architectural reasons, and there's no real need for it, and it's a cost that you could reduce if you're building affordable housing.
Thank you. Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Walker Douglas, Douglas Property and Development. First of all, thanks Dylan and Rick for putting this all together. Rick, you've been a pleasure to work with on some architectural
Yes.
reviews in Town Center.
Thanks.
I've had the pleasure of being on several architectural review boards, and I've seen some truly hideous building elevations come across our desks, some really horrible stuff. And unfortunately, I'm not as organized as Tony and Carla, so I don't have the exact number to give you. I just have the language of something that popped up that may be difficult for y'all to enforce, and I do have some feedback on it. For multi-story commercial uses, at minimum 50% of the wall facade on the first floor story shall have windows. Very simple comment on that. We've seen, just in Town Center alone, a lot of building elevations come across the ARC, and some pretty ugly ones, to be frank. We've dressed them all up, I think, very well. But in none of those scenarios was the only answer putting a lot of windows on the first floor. It's a burdensome addition to architects and developers. It's a large cost burden. There are all sorts of other ways to articulate the first floor, and if sometimes we are presented with sort of a monolithic building, windows are not the only solution. There's all sorts of other ways to get around it. I think that'll prevent a lot of sort of thoughtless design that's just obligated to meet the code, which is something that you see a lot when you've got a lot of design that handcuffs you to one thing or another. We like to keep things creative, and I think that's why we've got a lot of great architectural elevations in Town Center, because we've allowed the developers room for creativity. So I think you could easily pull that from the LDC and get a more collaborative approach to it. When you've got somebody coming in with a large multi-story building, a lot of times you have a lot of leverage and leeway with, hey, maybe do it this way, maybe do it that way. It's not typical that you've got 100 of these coming across your desk every year. It's maybe 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. But those are my only comments. Thank you for your time, and I think that's everybody.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. That was a good
Thank you
comment.
all for public comment. We'll close public comment at this time. And we really appreciate it. We thank you all for being here, and we really encourage other members of the public to participate. That's how we work together, because not one person can catch everything. Our vantage points are very different, so we really appreciate all of the comments, and staff will take those comments and prepare the document as requested and send it back out to us. And you're not limited to the 3 minutes if you like to send something to staff directly. If you think of something once you get home, please feel free to do so. So we come back to the board for comment? Yes.
I was going to say that's where the rubber meets the road, for you sitting through a couple hours of previous content to register your concerns are obviously important to you, so they're important to us, so thank you.
For the staff, for the current ratio, when it talks about the windows being 50%, and what is the current requirement right now? Was that on here again? Because I can't remember.
Different for different scenarios.
So it's different for different scenarios, and now we're trying to just make a blanket statement that it's 50% windows, correct?
No, it's 50% for commercial.
For commercial.
So
Well, that's what I meant on the commercial.
Yeah.
So you said for different scenarios on commercial. But what is it prior? There's no requirement now?
Current is 50. We added a minimum.
Okay, so the current's always been 50%.
Correct.
It's just now we're just adding the verbiage in there. So we're not changing what it currently was.
Right.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. So with all the public comment and everything today, I guess you're asking for us to push this to city council or so, or what is the requirement, or what are you guys looking for us to do today? Or could we possibly wait to see some of this stuff from the city to reevaluate this before we make our recommendation?
Through the chair, yeah. So our strategy is basically we're gonna provide the amendments to the LDC based on first we provide the 4 areas to clarify, to basically to update references, and then basically to reflect what we adopted in the comprehensive policies. And then also through experience, we encounter things that we basically want to make it enhance it, or basically to make it more easier to understand. So basically, that's what we're trying to do. So we are using the PLDRB workshop and City Council workshop as a public workshop for everyone. So that's the reason why we don't go directly to each individual, like builders or roofers or anything like that, because this is basically the public workshop that we would basically advertising in order for you to provide comments. And we're going to take comments throughout from here until June, approximately, of 2026. So if you have other comments that you come home and say, well, what about this and that, please provide that to us. We will take those comments. And then what we would do is that we will put it in a matrix, and we will let you know that every comment that you provide, we will address that. And then we will bring it back after we see what legislature is going to do with the 180. And then we'll come back and then present that to basically the appropriate board, BEAC, based on the chapters appropriately. And then all of that to PLDRB and then council one more time. And then after that, then that's when we will ask for action. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're going to have a chance to look at this again after you guys submit this to City Council with the public's comment, so that they're aware of it also. And then we'll get another reading of this so that we can see it again and cross-check it with what we receive from the public. So that way we can see if those things were addressed, such as the building requirements and other things.
Yeah, and don't forget on our website we also have a social pinpoint that you can basically provide comments as well too. So you don't necessarily have to attend, but we would like you to attend if all possible.
Yes, and we're looking for as much input as we can get from the public and from our boards. Dylan and I did the same presentation a few weeks back to the BEAC, and we got some comments from them also. And then now we're here tonight, and we'll be doing it in front of the City Council soon. So we're all ears, and we're listening, and we're like you said, we're working together to come up with the best set of regulations we can.
When do you guys present this portion to City Council?
I'm not sure of the date.
This one I believe it would be either January or February, one of that, because we have some changes in schedule from city management. So we had some schedule for December, but looks like we're not going to present anything in December. So.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that the public had enough time to submit you their concerns via email for you guys to reference their concerns before you present this, so in case you have to redo something.
Yeah, our schedule of workshops is basically will be posted on website and on social pinpoints. As we schedule them, we update them as well too.
Thank you all. It really was wonderful to see 4 members of the public. We don't often get members of the public here to participate. So we thank you all, to the planning board also for your feedback, and to staff again for a great presentation. Are there any other items, board discussion, staff items?
No, I do not have.
Okay, seeing none, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all, and have a wonderful, safe evening.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. No, I understand. Facing the right way. And then,